now, we're going to go and hopefully get some of those answers from our guy from the Philly Voice, Mr. Jimmy Kempski. Jimmy, thank you for coming on with Fourth and Jawn.
How's it going, guys?
Jimmy.
It's going great. Pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for hopping on with us. Just real quick, right off the bat, your initial reactions from that ass kicking that we got from the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I mean, like the score was not even close to what happened in that game. I mean, they just got really. I mean, the Redskins just really dominated. My biggest takeaway from the game was they got dominated in the trenches, and they kind of went against the way that they played the first 3 weeks of the season. And I didn't think they get dominated along the offensive and defensive lines against the Detroit Lions. I thought, in many ways they won some battles up front, but just the way that they got dominated was really kind of alarming. Really, the way Washington was able to win in the trenches there. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Now, Doug Peterson in his press conference did a lot of self-blaming, unlike Chip Kelly. All right. He did a lot of, it starts with me. It's my, I got to do a better job, almost Andy-esque. But he did say the one word that kind of made me cringe. It made my eye twitch a little bit. And he talked about execution, which undoubtedly is a problem. So I want to ask you, if you were to place the blame more one way or the other, because we know it's a combination of both. Is it more that Doug Peterson and the coaching staff doesn't have the scheme in place? They're not game planning right, or is the actual execution is poor on both sides of the ball?
I think for the most part, they've done a really nice job, the coaching staff, that is. I mean, you look at the first three games, I thought, just what they did, what Doug Peterson did offensively, what Jim Schwartz did defensively, I thought they came out and, had great game plans. And I thought the players, executed it to the degree that they can at their skill level. Obviously in the Detroit game, they came out kind of flat in that first half, and they fought back. I thought both the offense and defense played better in the second half of that game. Fifth game against the Redskins obviously was kind of a debacle from start to finish. So, on the whole, I think they've done a good job. I don't really want to kill them too badly for, one really bad game.
Yeah.
But, I think it's fair to kind of spread the blame around all over the place. If you're a head coach, you don't want to completely absolve your team of blame because, they certainly made mistakes of their own and didn't execute. I mean, he's right. I mean, that's kind of the truth. They didn't always execute. Give Doug credit for taking the blame up front and that, he could have done a better job. People got tired of hearing that from Andy Reid at the end of his tenure when they go 4-12, and every press conference is saying, "I got to do a better job." It kind of starts to ring hollow. But I have no problem with him, taking the blame and then also kind of saying that the players need to play better as well.
Jimmy, this is Jason, and it is coach speak, right? Because we've heard it before, and we know the line, and every good coach is going to take some accountability. But how is it that? They really were dominated in all phases of that game. They were dominated on the offensive line. They took a guy in Jordan Reed who was no longer in the game, no longer in the game plan, and made Vernon Davis rewind the clock 10 years and look like he was a legitimate threat. So Sal Paolantonio said it earlier today. This coaching staff just looked ill-prepared. So what is going on during the week for an NFL team to come out and look so unprepared? Not just unprepared, but so unprepared.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really tough to say if they were prepared or unprepared. It was a weird game, especially the way it kind of unraveled there in the second quarter, where the Redskins had a long drive. They score, and then the Eagles get the kick return touchdown. Redskins come back, and they put together another longer drive that's interrupted by the Malcolm Jenkins interception return for a touchdown. Redskins then get the ball back. They have another long drive in which they score. That brings us to the end of the first half. The Eagles, they do have the one snap. They've been kneel down. It goes to halftime. The Redskins get the ball after the half, and they have another long drive. So they actually ran 39 plays in between the Eagles actually having some kind of offensive drive. 39 plays, which is really kind of ridiculous. I mean, it went from, I want to say it was like 8 minutes left, I believe, in the second quarter until or like 12 minutes left in the second quarter until there was like 8 or 7 minutes left in the third quarter. It was a span of like 20 minutes of game time, which is a third of the game in between, the Eagles having the ball on an actual offensive drive. So, it's really kind of difficult to get your offensive, game plan flowing when your defense is out on the field that long. And, of course, that's somewhat self-inflicted because they couldn't get the Redskins off the field because they were just committing dumb penalties and they had, a lot of long third down conversions. But it's just a really weird game because, that big stretch in between that second and third quarter where they just didn't have the ball at all is, you don't really see that all that often. So I don't want to say they're totally ill-prepared. Certainly I think the Redskins had their number. The Redskins kind of owned them over the last 2 years. But, it's really difficult for me to say that they were unprepared. Certainly that they were out-coached, I believe. But, it's too difficult to know what their game plan actually was because they didn't get a chance to execute it. Or they didn't really get the chance to play it out offensively.
Yeah, and I have another question. This is Mike. And speaking of preparation, who do you have more to blame, the coaches or the players, from what we've seen in the past 2 weeks? Like, it seems like the players are not prepared whatsoever and the coaches as well. Who do you think takes more of the blame on that aspect?
It's a question I really can't answer. I mean, during training camp, we have access, and then, once right around the second or third preseason game begins, we don't have access to practice anymore. We get to see them stretch and warm up, and then that's it. So, I mean, we can't really see what their preparation is during the week. So to be able to answer, who was less prepared, the players or the coach, is just something that, that's kind of outside what we can kind of determine.
Now, there was a systematic breakdown of the defense that never quite got adjusted. Unlike the Lions game where in the second half they kind of settled in and made the adjustments and got the game plan going. Many people, including myself, looked at this and had, almost Vietnam flashbacks of Jim Washburn and Juan Castillo, that entire nightmare. Seeing that defense systematically torn apart the entire game, did the Lions write the script on how to attack Jim Schwartz's defense, the Redskins perfect it, and then is that going to haunt the Eagles moving forward for the rest of the season? Because now it almost looks like the jig is up a little bit. This is how you attack this defense.
I don't think so. The first 4 games, they gave up an average of about 70 rushing yards, and then obviously the Redskins went off for over 200 last week. Are they going to look at what the Redskins were able to do to them offensively? Yeah, I mean, sure, they're going to try some of those looks, and the Eagles are going to adjust in their own right. The one thing that I do think kind of really works against the Eagles' favor is that Benny Logan's going to be out for a little bit of time, and in my view, he's probably their best, run-stopping defensive lineman. So that's a big loss if he's going to be out for a while. Certainly, that's going to help, or certainly that's going to hurt their ability to stop the run. So. Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see a little bit of a decline between what they looked like the first 4 weeks of the season against the run and what they looked like week 6 against the Redskins. But, just in terms of the Redskins kind of write the blueprint for, teams going forward for the rest of the season? Nah, I don't think so. I think, the Eagles will kind of adjust to what they were able to do. And there's always counters to counters and, counters to those counters. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think they'll come out this week and they'll do a much better job against the run against the Vikings.
Hey, Jimmy, this is Gail. Moving forward at the right tackle position, I mean, do you think the Eagles address that position with a free agent, make it a trade of some sort, or do you think they just wing it?
I think it's going to be Big V.
No Joe Thomas?
I'm sorry?
I said no Joe Thomas trade down the road?
Nah, I don't think the Joe Thomas, I've seen a couple of people bring that up.
Yeah.
That really makes any sense at all. First of all, the Cleveland Browns are going to want a lot for him. And secondly, it's a guy that's played left tackle his entire career, stick him at right tackle. So I just don't see that as really a viable solution. And you're paying Lane Johnson like a left tackle going forward. He's going to be your left tackle. So it's just not really a good fit. The Eagles have actually made 3 trade deadline trades. Since 2009, I believe. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could trade for, a tackle or a cornerback, but I would bet against that. And really, I would kind of lean toward, if they were going to make some kind of trade, it would be sort of a back of the roster type of player, not a guy that you're going to really stick in there and be able to start right away. So, yeah, I think it's going to be Big V going forward. And I wonder, if Howie Roseman really has any influence whatsoever on who plays. I do wonder if, they want to get a look at Vaitai and see if he can kind of be the right tackle of the future, because at some point James Peterson is going to be playing much longer. Obviously, Lane Johnson's going to move over to left tackle when he no longer can. So maybe there's some logic in seeing what Vaitai can do for you, and if he can be that right tackle of the future. And if he can't, then you can be prepared to spend draft capital or free agent dollars on a guy who can be a right tackle. So maybe this is a good look at what he can do, so you can kind of prepare yourself for the offseason.
All right, so let's stay on Vaitai for a second, because look, I fall into the camp to say, what really did we expect? As a fifth-round rookie, kind of got thrust into the situation because of the Lane Johnson situation, so I didn't expect him to go out there and play like a Pro Bowl right tackle. But that said, he still has a job to do, and that's protect Carson Wentz. So if you want to get a look at who your right tackle is, really two things. What can Doug Peterson do that he obviously didn't do in the Washington game to help him out, whether it's chip blockers or whatever that may be? And the second part of that is, how long is that leash? Because you want to find out if he can be the right tackle, but at what point do you realize he may not have it just yet, and I've got to get somebody, whether that's just an average Matt Tobin, whether that's bringing in Newski and then shifting over Barber to the right tackle position. How long is that leash before Doug says, I've got to make a change to protect my quarterback?
Yeah, if they're going to make the change, it would be, the latter. It would be, them moving Barber out from left guard to right tackle and then sticking Wisniewski in at left guard. And, I don't know when that is for them. I thought they really should have considered it hard during the game against the Redskins, because that's the divisional game, and you don't want to embarrass the kid by benching him mid-game and kind of making that switch. But they really did need that game, so at some point you really kind of have to consider doing that. Now they did give him a lot of help. I mean, early on in the game, they kind of let him test it out, and Kerrigan just smoked him. It's really kind of a tough. First game
Tough
for a
draw,
guy
right?
Who is inactive the first 4 weeks of the season, and then you throw him out there against one of the better pass rushers that comes off of that side in the NFL, and a guy that averages right around 10 sacks per season for his career, and a guy that has a lot of forced fumbles and really has had a lot of success specifically against the Eagles. So I mean that's really kind of a tough matchup for him. But yeah, I mean I don't know when the line is on when you got to get him out of there and put somebody else in. If he has another game against the Vikings like he did against the Redskins, then I would have to imagine that they can't go into the Dallas Cowboy game the following week with him as the starting right tackle.
And Brad, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I was looking at my phone board because the phones are already starting to rack up. We appreciate every.
Oh, I'm taking calls?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, we appreciate every minute that you've given us.